This is one of my favorite stops on the walking tour. It's stop number 7. It's called Before Edmonds. You stand here and you get to see two of the most beautiful murals in Edmonds at the same time. But they both just tell a wonderful story about our history, our Native history. They were painted by Andy Eccleshaw, who's a non-Native artist. In fact, he's from England. But when he first was commissioned to these murals, he said, I really want to make sure I'm telling the story and I'm not comfortable doing it without Native representation. So I love how he got in collaboration with Ty Juvenal, who's a Tulalip artist. He's a young, upcoming Tulalip artist. He's got many works around Edmonds now, but he called Ty, and together they worked to make sure that everything in here is historically accurate. They went up to the Highbold Museum, walked around and made sure that the clothing is accurate, the canoes are accurate, the flora and fauna is accurate. So I really feel a special connection with these murals, especially when you go in the middle and you stand. It's an immersive experience, I like to say. So when you're standing there, just picture that thousands and thousands of years ago, this is what the marsh probably looked like. So here we are standing in what would be the marsh, and this is what it would look like thousands and thousands of years ago, before development came. So if we look to the west, we look at the mountains much as they were, and people from all different tribal nations would come. And Suquamish, perhaps, Duwamish, Lummi, all Snohomish tribes, they would travel by canoes, and the canoes would look very much like this. They would come from near and far, and what they were seeking was a place to set up summer camp. And that's what this area was known for, a place that had very rich resources. And it was also the start to many trails that led to other places where you could gather food. The summer camps would be set up and people would live there for months, and they would gather and harvest and then take it back to their villages so that they could survive through the winter. And so how they knew that this place was here is by a very distinct physical feature. And that feature was called Stubus. And it's a Lushootseed word, and it means blunt face. And it's the area where Point Edwards is. And they knew that if they found the blunt face, that at the bottom would be the marsh, and that was the place where they could gather and where other people were gathering to fish and harvest, and that it was a safe place. So when the tribes would travel and land here for harvesting, you would see many things like this in the canoes. So these would be perhaps like sides for shelter. These are baskets used for probably harvesting some of the clams and mussels. These are very typical paddles that they would use while they were paddling the canoes ashore. Boxes, cedar boxes, and perhaps spears for fishing, and nets. They would gather birds using a net system, and fish as well. But this is a great example of how Ty and Andy teamed together to make sure that the things represented in here are accurate to what we would see.